Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at another Q&A session during 61st edition of Krakow Film Festival. Today we have with us Magnus Skatvold, the director of the film Blue Coat of Silence. Hello Magnus, thank you so much for being here with us.
It's very nice to be here. Although it's digital, it's nice to kind of get the film shown in Poland. It's the premiere here it's the Polish premiere.
And at least we can talk by Zoom, so at least we have something. So Magnus, apparently I have to start with the question about how did you find this character? How did you find this incredible story? How did you get in touch with Bob Lowry? How did it all begin for you?
This project started over 10 years ago when I was studying in the US. I went with a couple of friends up to Rhode Island. And at a barbecue party, I met Bob Lowry. And as you will see or have seen, Bob is a very energetic character that kind of were the center of attention in that party. So I was automatically drawn to him, and I didn't know anything about Bob before meeting him. I just felt he was a very interesting character that I got curious about. And we connected pretty well because I think I was the first Scandinavian person I had ever met. He was very interested about that. And throughout the years, I went back to my friends and coincidentally, I bumped into him a couple of times. And we started talking about maybe doing a documentary about him. Kind of first we were joking about it, but after reading more about him, I read his book, I read other books about him. Saw, of course, Prince of the City by Sidney Lumet from the 80s about his life. I got really intrigued about making a film about Bob Lowry in his 70s, looking back, and a film that could kind of take decades of time to really where characters have had the time to reflect about their past. They have changed, they have maybe a completely different take on the actions and choices they made back then, especially Bob. So that started the whole process in 2014. So it started out with a couple of interviews with Bob, and the ball just started rolling from there.
That's right. But Magnus, weren't you afraid a little bit of this subject? As you mentioned, you as a foreigner, you go to the US and you are going to examine the American justice system and the police department in New York. Also, as you mentioned at the beginning, Bob is like a really strong character. It's like a really strong personality. So I believe that he can easily manipulate some facts about his life. And if he's eager to depict himself as a superhero in your film, I would believe that actually he could try to manipulate you as a director and make his story more positive or maybe more focused about what he achieved. Weren't you afraid of that?
And that was definitely the case, because I think Bob saw in me a very naive fan without much prior knowledge about the US justice system and law enforcement. I was just eating up everything he told me. So he saw maybe a way to retell his story in a very positive light, you know? And I immediately picked up on that. And it was when I started talking with the other people from in the story, either old colleagues of him, other parts of his family, lawyers that worked on these cases. At first it was frustrating because everyone was telling a different story than Bob, you know. everyone had their own take on who he was and why he did the choices he did. And after a while, I started embracing that there's so much. On one side, being he's been praised as a hero for speaking up against corruption, but the other side deems him as a rat, a betrayer that betrayed his police colleagues to save his own skin. And that dynamic between love and hate, I felt very was was a great starting point for a documentary, and try to maybe come in with to nuance that in a way, to not take sides, not to go into the kind of very American way of seeing a case often in black or white, as many of these characters often do. So that was kind of the whole starting point of the documentary, which I wanted to explore. Yeah.
Did Bob know from the very beginning what is your plan? Did Bob know that actually you are talking to other people? Did he know that you are planning to make this story as a nuanced story? Or did he hope that maybe he can just use you just to express his own version of how it looks like?
I think he kind of understood it along the way, because we wanted to be very open with him who we were talking with, and he's not dumb, so he understood that some of these people that we talked with had completely different other opinions about him, and he understood that. But I think from his perspective, he wanted to put himself in the best light as possible, and that was something we really struggled with in his interviews. That we had to really use other interviews or other archives to really go into the stuff they really the crimes they committed, because he kind of rationalized everything I asked him about. If I asked him, yeah, why did you start taking money? Yeah, I started taking money, but you know, it was everyone was doing it. Everyone was on the take. I was not the worst. I was maybe one of the good guys, you know? So it's everything that we tried to um, confront him with. He had a very rationalized answer to.
Gotcha. And actually, what I really enjoyed in your film is the fact that it really deals with that easy deviation on good people and bad people, good cops and bad cops. Like in your film, we can see that actually it's all mixed up, and the way that, in example, Hollywood creates that kind of characters on the screen has absolutely nothing to do with the reality.
Mm. No, so we wanted to show the personal struggles of because I see also, although Bob did a lot of bad things and bad choices in his life, is when we really come down to it, he is a whistleblower that uh, that risked everything to blow the whistle on a corrupt culture. And people always try to pin down, yeah, but he did all these bad things, but still he did, after a while, when he did a good thing, that is not something you should be hated for. That it is something you should be praised for. And that, I think, is the main takeaway from our film, that we have to protect the ones that are willing to step out of a corrupt culture, and not kind of point the finger of to what they have done prior to becoming a whistleblower.
That's it. But I believe that actually for you, it has to be like a real challenge to not justify some actions of Bob, but also not to redeem some action of
Yeah.
him. But you were trying to like balance in between both of these sides. So I believe that it has to be something very hard for the director.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. And we were really struggling with the ethical parts of telling the story because, as you will see in the film, eventually, through in the middle of the process of making this film, Bob Lucy dies very unexpectedly. And that made us, and we had only done kind of half of the interviews that we wanted with him. Our idea was to take him back to New York, maybe take him back to reunite him with some of his prior colleagues, and uh, but we had to work with what we had, and we were really unsure if we could tell this story with the main character being dead. But after talking with his family, his wife, they were really uh, interested uh, in seeing this project finished. So uh, that made us really assured that we wanted to finish this film. And it was equal important for me to make a film that I could stand behind and look his family in the eyes and really, this is we have not tried to do hurtful portrait of your husband, but still making them understand that we can't make a glorified portrait of him. We have to show the hatred and the hurt that Bob has created also.
And what were their reactions? How did they react for the Reddit film?
It was a mix. Um, his wife, which you see in the film, has a really nuanced and complex understanding of her husband. She really loves the film, while other parts of his family, his daughter especially, hates us. She wants nothing to do with the film, and I don't think she has even seen the whole film yet, because she has decided that this is kind of a bad portrait of her father. Yeah, so that's something we have been struggling with, but we have just uh, decided that we have to live with that.
Gotcha. But what was it hard for you to take these reactions?
Yeah, I but it's in the nature of making documentaries, I guess. You can't be everyone's favorites, and I try to make such a balanced and nuanced portrait as possible, and uh, people will disagree on that, and that's the nature of making documentaries, I guess. And we have experienced that from both sides. Some have also from the other side that uh, has said that the film is too glamorizing on Bob, while his family uh, feel it's a bit harsh as well. So you have it's it's only a matter of how you look at it, from which angle.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
did Bob have the chance to see anything from the edited material? Like, did you edit it during shooting, or did you edit the whole part after you had the whole material and you decided that this is the moment that you can start on? How did it look like?
No, we have been editing the whole way. That's kind of my writing process in a way. So I've been having versions of this film for 5 years in a way. So we showed him a couple of scenes and a teaser for the film, and I was really nervous showing it to him because I felt he would hate it, and especially having other people saying bad stuff about him. But he was more concerned about the way he looked. Yeah, I'll look a bit fat in this scene. Could you change that? Yeah. So that's really telling about the character of Bob.
Gotcha. So for you, what kind of person, what kind of character Bob was? How will you remember him?
Uh, I will remember him as very complex, warm uh, in one moment, but really hard in in the next moment. He had a very emotional way of reacting to everything around him. Um, but he also was, I think he was very much driven by a want to be liked and loved. And I think all of the choices he had made throughout his life is really, it really boils down to that. So when he became a cop, he wanted to be the most popular cop. When he became a corrupt cop, he did that, I think, mainly to be accepted and loved by his fellow officers. When he became a double agent in a way, or a whistleblower, it was also to because he got suddenly attention from powerful people within the justice system. And also when he became sort of like a star after uh, after his police career as a writer, or when they made a movie about him, he also craved that attention. And he's a really complex but also um, fascinating character.
Gotcha. And Magnus, before I let you go, I want to ask you one more thing because thanks to your film, we have the unusual access to the American justice system, police department, etc. And it was also like the new access totally for you. So I'm just curious if you change your way of thinking about the justice system or about policemen in general after making Blue Collar Silence.
Going into this film, I didn't know very much about the justice system, only uh, from the American one, only the stuff I've seen in movies and TV. But going into this, especially going into the archives and police reports, newspapers, it really shocked me how open and systematic the corruption was in the 70s, especially. It seemed like the whole New York as a city was on the take in a way. And what we have seen is that systematical corruption has changed. It has become much better throughout the years. But as some of the characters point out in the film is that we see it as a cyclical thing, that it always comes back. It dives down for a while. We have commissions, we have people like Bob Lucy that sheds light on a corrupt culture, and the corruption dies down for a while, but slowly it comes back. And I think in a way, it will be hard to break that cycle. I think we will always, in institutions of power, we will always uh, find the ones that are willing to abuse that power, and that's maybe pessimistic and sad way of looking at it, but I think in a lot of ways it is the reality.
It's always good to remind about the things that doesn't work well. So, Magnus, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for making this great documentary. And hopefully we see each other face to face at the next edition of Krakow Film Festival here in Poland.
I hope so too. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.